Hey everybody, welcome to my channel. Welcome back to my channel. I'm Susan Lynn. I'm a psychic medium spirit navigator, and you might notice that I have a friendly face on my screen today, which is Dabney from Lawless Astrology. And yes, she's a crowd favorite. She's one of mine as well. And she's here to help us understand, because I don't know about you, but I need to understand what is happening, why it's happening. Because I think that we can tell you what's going to happen to a degree, but my God, don't you want to know why? So Dabney's here to help us understand why it's happening from an astrological angle, but also from a historical angle, because astrology is a science. History has happened. This is going to help us understand the current energies. Thank you so much for joining us today. How are you, Dabney?
Hi, Susan. Thanks for having me on. I very much appreciate it. And I love talking to your audience because you have the best audience out there. I believe that.
I don't know. I think so.
Good
I'm
people.
biased.
Good people for sure. So I was just watching before we came on your most recent video. I'm not sure when you're posting this one, but you posted a video today on Tuesday about duality and how there's a lot of mysteries, a lot of things going on behind the scenes that we don't fully understand or can't really grasp. And so that's something that I wanted to kind of just touch base on because I think the astrology is mirroring that message quite a bit right now. So I'm going to mention some astrological things, but don't worry, I'm going to actually break everything down so it's not like, confusing astrobabble. But I do think when you were talking today, one of the things that I really liked was this feeling of like, we feel a little lost, like we don't understand what's happening. We may never fully understand what's happening. And that doesn't mean that things aren't happening. And so I think the biggest takeaway of this season, and I'm going to do a video on this, is the biggest takeaway right now is that we have to kind of pull within and we have to focus on ourselves, our healing, preparing ourselves for letting go of what was, because there's a lot of endings coming in 2020, the beginning of the year, in 2025. A lot of just things falling away, the things, the structures, the things we've come to rely on. The post office potentially may no longer be, just like things that we've come to rely on our whole lives. We're entering into a completely new world. And you use the word paradigm, a whole new paradigm. So when we have these paradigm shifts, it can be incredibly disconcerting and can be incredibly scary, frankly. I mean, I don't know about you, but a lot of people I'm talking to, myself included, we wake up in the middle of the night and we can start catastrophizing and thinking about all of the scary things that could happen. And I want to acknowledge that that's not unfounded. And I also want to acknowledge that the future isn't here yet. And so we may have to go through some endings to get to a rebirth of something completely new. And so I've been looking at kind of the astrological symbols to kind of give people some hope, to have something to hold on to. So my presentation, or what I'm going to talk about today, is kind of the assumption that potentially he who shall not be named will be the next incoming administration. I can't say for sure. You've got a totally different line to spirit guides and things that I don't have, but the information that I have, just preparing people for the worst, is that this is happening. So if we go under the assumption it's happening, that's a lot of what I'm going to be talking about is predicated on that information. So I hope I'm not losing people with that.
No, and I want to just interject and say, even though I always think it's a good idea to prepare for the worst and hope for the best. Come on, I'm a pragmatist. I'm a Virgo. But I also want to say the energy you're reading really would apply to Kamala too. I mean, this is the energy cast forth to the presidency, to the United States. Is that correct?
Yes, 100%. And it's really for this time in history. And there is a lot of chaos right now. There is so much chaos. And that is why people feel lost and confused and they don't know what to believe. They're listening to some astrologers that say one thing and some psychics that say another thing. And that, there's that duality, holding on to not knowing what is going to happen and feeling like you're in the gap, like feeling like there is nothing to hold on to. That's kind of the imagery that I get, is like in the darkness with, you don't know where to go and what to hold on to. And so what I want to tell you, the only thing that you can hold on to right now is the belief that things are happening on a bigger scale that we can't really understand. Historically, I'm going to give you some examples of where things felt chaotic in the moment, but changed the course of history. And so we don't know the end of the story. That's what I always say, is like, there's this old parable, and I won't go into the whole thing because it's long and I don't want to bore everybody, but I lost my horse, and then my horse came back, and everyone's like, "Oh, you're so lucky your horse came back." And then the horse kicked the son, and the son was in a wheelchair, and everyone's like, "Oh, that's the most unlucky thing that can ever happen to you, you poor man." And so anyway, the bottom line is, and then like all the children, all the sons were taken away to war, and then but his wasn't, because he was in a wheelchair. And so, you're the luckiest person. Don't go on those swings. I'm sorry, that's a very shorthand of that story, but I hope I didn't confuse everybody with that. But my point being is, like, come back to the center right now, because there's the highs, there's the lows, there's the, big swings of emotions that can happen with all this information and drones. And like, some people say the drones are just planes and lights. Some people say they're UFOs. Like, we don't know what's happening. So come back to yourself, focus on your friends, focus on your household, focus on your family, because that's what's needed right now.
I agree, 100%. And so I would just say, while she's talking, and she's going to be using 45 as kind of the figure around this, but I want you to imagine, because I know you guys have the brain power. I know that my viewers are brainiac people. I know that. I want you to just expand your consciousness and think, how would this energy affect Kamala Harris? How would this energy affect Biden if he stayed in till March? How would this energy affect Biden or 45 or me? Why don't you allow this energy to sort of expand your knowledge, right? And kind of think of it in a disassociative way. Like, if you were observing, let's all be in observer mode for the next, say, hour, because that's going to open up your subconscious, and you're going to start getting knowledge that, Dabney said this, and I had this thought. That's where you want to be. You don't want to be in anxiety and worry mode. You want to be in observer mode. Okay. So check observer mode, and let's do this thing.
Yep. So the anxiousness, let's check it at the door for Christmas or Hanukkah or whatever you celebrate. Like, we want you to be able to have a degree of sanity in these crazy, insane times. So I've come on your channel before, and I've talked about Pluto and Capricorn at length. And so just as a reminder for people who haven't seen any of that video or any of the videos on my channel, Pluto and Capricorn is a time when, and it's a 20-year period. It happened since, it was a little less than that, but 2008. So that was kicked off with the financial crisis. And so anytime we have Pluto entering a new sign, there tends to be something that portends what's to come. Like, it's kind of like really early on, you see the writing on the wall. So throughout history, anytime Pluto is in Capricorn, we have gotten to a place where the people in power, the elites, the power structure has really just gone too far. They've become too greedy. They've gotten too powerful. They've consolidated their power. Really, the theme that Susan and I were talking about with this video is power, where suddenly we have a structure that is really not a caring structure, it's a corrupt structure. And so this is true throughout history. I've gone back 2,000 years and I've looked to see where was the ruling power. And if you want to go see the whole history, we won't talk about that because it's not a history channel, I know. But I do have a video that goes all the way back on my channel if you're interested. But here, what I want to talk about is, I'm just going to read this one little piece, okay? So now Pluto has entered Aquarius. It's just entered Aquarius now for the next 20 years. It's till 2033, I believe. And Pluto in Aquarius is a shift, and Pluto in Aquarius is an answer to the Pluto and Capricorn energy. So something changes. And so, you know, we've all are familiar with the song from the 1960s about the dawning of the age of Aquarius. Unfortunately, that does a little bit of a disservice to the sign of Aquarius, because Aquarius is not all lovey, touchy-feely, holding hands, you know, hippie vibe. It just isn't. And Pluto is the god of the underworld. Pluto is transformation. Pluto comes in troubles and really shakes things up to shine a light on what needs to be healed, like where things have become rotten and decayed. So now we can begin the healing. Okay. So we've all been seeing, there's been a spotlight on the corruption and the decay within our power structures, our government, our judicial system, our corporate overlords, right? Like we've seen how people lost their houses, but the banks were bailed out. We saw how people lost their lives during COVID, but then people in Congress made a profit off of it, right? So these are all like very Pluto and Capricorn themes where the people who are supposed to be taking care of us, not doing a good job. Okay, so Pluto and Aquarius, this is from an astrologer named Jessica Davidson, and I don't think I could say it any better. So I'm just going to read this one little piece. Aquarius represents the need for civilization to reform and grow. The structures of society will stagnate and decline if they are not changed through a vision, innovation, and revolution. But this process isn't always positive and can create unintended consequences that lead to disintegration and chaos. That's where we're at, okay? We're at the beginning of this Pluto in Aquarius, and it's a 20-year cycle. But we did have something that just, to me, was so emblematic of Pluto in Aquarius, and that was Luigi, the adjuster. That was very Pluto in Aquarius. So I am not advocating vigilanteism. Also, there's the duality that you talked about in your video, Susan, holding the truth that, you know, this person who was, you know, gunned down in Manhattan, that person was responsible for the ruin of many people's lives, hundreds of thousands of people's lives, through bankruptcy, through, you know, denying healthcare to a child who may not have lived. So there is, you know, death on that person's conscious. That person is emblematic. So do I say that that's, you know, the full extent of what's going to happen in Pluto and Aquarius? No, I think that was the kickoff, the way that the housing crisis was. That was the thing that was like, we went from the Republicans, it's all your fault. Democrats, it's all your fault. Okay. Like this kind of demonization of each other, which is happening because that elite is quite good at bifurcating us and pitting us against one another. They're really good at that through alternative media and propaganda. And so we have to understand the people in our lives who are literally, and we may not respect their critical thinking skills, but they are being fed a diet of misinformation, and they've been turned against facts. And in some ways, we have been ingesting some of that as well. I don't think it's a both sidesism thing. Please don't give comments that say I'm both sidesing. I'm not. I'm clearly on, you know, the side of let's not be evil. That's the side I'm on. Okay. So, the two sides are not the same, and I am not trying to say that. So just putting that out there. But I do want to say that we have to kind of hold that truth that we have been separated and we are now fighting one another rather than fighting up here. Who is the one doing this? And that's Pluto and Aquarius is like suddenly it may be a process, but our eyes begin to be opened and we realize like, oh, why am I fighting my neighbor when it's actually the billionaire who is starving our educational system? And, they're injecting these social issues into our body politic to divide us when the reality is we all want good education. We all want, to have health insurance that can pay for our loved ones when they're sick. We all want people we know, even if they voted for 45, we want them to not die or go bankrupt from not having health insurance. So does that make sense, Susan? Am I being clear?
Yes.
Or?
Yes, it's very clear. I got chills when you said, I'm getting them again. When you said that was the kickoff, like that, put a pin in it. The guides are saying, put a pin in that thing that happened with Luigi, the guy who did the thing against the CEO of the healthcare. If you don't know, they call him the adjuster because the insurance, thing. Yes, absolutely makes sense. I am riveted. Let's do this.
Okay, good. So Pluto and Aquarius is where we're headed. Okay. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back and we're putting a pin in the Luigi piece of it for what I think is going to be coming. But let's go back in history a little bit and let's look. So I personally thought it was like a no-brainer that Kamala was going to win. So that was my prediction. I'm not a predictive astrologer, and I've always been very clear about that. But the signs and the symbols of Pluto moving into Aquarius to me represented more power to the people. It represented diversity. It represented an adjustment, a change from what we've been having, because she had some very progressive policies that would have given more power to people, and versus what we're going to be getting, which is, a plutocratic oligarchy, right? Which is very much Pluto and Capricorn. But, let's look at throughout history why I went back and looked throughout history, because I was like, how could this happen? And one of the things I realized is a lot of astrologers, myself included, were focusing very much on the last time Pluto was in Aquarius, and that was the rise of democracy. Because when Pluto was in Aquarius the last time, we had the American Revolution and we had the French Revolution. And it was coming off of the Age of Enlightenment, where it really became, it really was the seeds of modern society now with democracy, and it was really overthrowing the kings and queens that had all of the power to tax and just kind of, let them eat cake kind of thing, even though I know she didn't say that. But symbolically, that is the, Marie Antoinette, why she lost her head, right? During the French Revolution, because people were fed up. People were fed up with being serfs with no power. People will put up with a lot, is what I've realized. We are happy to just go about our lives and put up with a lot until it just gets too far. And I think we're at that tipping point where it's just gotten to be too much. They've become too greedy. It's just too much. So one of the things that I looked at was Pluto in Aquarius. During that time, Neptune was in Libra. And Libra has to do with fairness and balance and justice. And so I think that there was something very relevant about that fact to what's happening now, because did I say Neptune? Neptune was in Libra. Neptune's going to go into Aries. Very different energy. So it's not necessarily like this revitalization of democracy. Not that Pluto in Aquarius doesn't have a democratic component, but we have to understand that we have to look at the outer planets and what happens, not just in isolation. And so I looked back at other times where Neptune was in Aries, and I found two examples that I felt like were really relevant.
Can I interrupt you for just 1 second? Can you explain to us just very quickly, briefly, what is Neptune and Aquarius? What is that Energy,
Okay.
the
So
energy
Neptune,
keywords.
yeah, no, totally. So Neptune has to do with what we idealize. And,
Mm.
it's something that kind of holds a spell on us and collectively. And so it can be individually, it's much more of a, our connection to spirit, our connection to the universe. But when we're looking at collectively, it's really kind of, our fantasies and what we project and what we, idealize is really.
Is it a cult, like a cult energy?
It could be. Well, so here's the thing. Right now, Neptune is currently in Pisces. Pisces rules Neptune. So they have very similar energies. And this is why we've been seeing cults. Cult. The most powerful country in the world has a cult. Is the politics, right? Like, and in addition to that, we see the misinformation, the lies, the delusion. That's all Neptune and Pisces. We don't know what to believe. So that was the piece that I was saying, that we still are going to be in this sort of confusion, because we really don't know what's real and what isn't. I remember a few years ago, it was in the comment section, and I was on another astrologer's comment section, and this person was just talking about like crazy stuff. And like, I kind of was like, that's not really happening. And she was like, what do you mean? And I gave her a link to something, and she was like, well, I don't know what to believe. And that's, I think, where we're at, is like, I don't know what to believe. Neptune, the idealization, the glamorization, is in a state of delusion. It could have been, and maybe there is some piece of it where people are waking up to a higher consciousness. That is the higher, right.
I don't think we're there yet. I don't think the bus has arrived to that station yet. So is Neptune currently in Pisces?
Neptune is currently in Pisces.
Okay. And then it's going to go into Mars.
It's going to go into Aries.
Darn it.
This spring. It's okay. We're not done with the delusion energy and the confusion energy, but we're going to start to wake up this spring. And that's where there's going to be a shift in energy in April, May. We're going to start to have some people waking up and getting out of this delusion that they've been in. But
April, May. Okay.
May. But what I will say is that there's also then a like kind of Aries is a fighting energy. It's much more masculine energy. And so, there's a glamorization of hypermasculinity. There's a glamorization of war. So anytime Neptune has been in Aries historically, we've had war.
When does that, let me just mark it on my calendar, war scheduled for, when is that? Is that midsummer?
Let me grab the dates. I'll get the dates. They're right here. Hold on.
Okay, while she's getting the dates, I'll just do a song and dance for you. No, I will not do that.
Okay.
I
Neptune
do see
goes
that
into Aries, March 30th, 2025. And it will go back into Pisces next year for a bit, but then it will go back into Aries, and it'll be there through March 23rd, 2039. So it's a long energy that we're coming to. But what it basically is you have this opportunity. There's always the high road and the low road, no matter
what.
what.
I was going to ask you.
And the high road of Neptune in Pisces has been a spiritual awakening, a rise in consciousness, a rise in empathy and love. That's the high road. The low road is addiction, escapism, delusion, chaos, confusion. So as we're moving away from that, the high road of Neptune in Aries is action, is recognizing where things have gone wrong. Neptune actually...
Clarity.
Right, there's clarity. So that's things start to come out. We develop a plan. We start to pull ourselves out of victimhood, which there's been a lot of victimhood over the past decade, and that's something that I think everybody's getting real sick of, right? It's like
the victims are the wrong ones. It's the billionaires and the white men. They're the ones that have been playing the victim card. But anyway, go ahead.
Right. No, exactly. So I think we're all just like, oh my God, and so now Neptune in Aries is like, oh, well, we have to fix this. There's kind of a, we need more empathy. We need to be more caring in society. But how do we get there? Do we agree? I don't want to confuse everyone. Just talking about Uranus is going to Gemini. We'll do a whole video in January about 2025. But for this purposes of this video, I want to give you this Pluto and Aquarius bit and just explain to you that while we're having Pluto and Aquarius, we're also going to be having Neptune and Aries. And I think we're in the, like I said, the like shedding of things that no longer work for us. There's going to be some new solutions, but it's entering us into a new paradigm. So let's look at two examples. I'm going to go over the first one pretty quickly. Any questions? I'm really glad that you stopped me about that.
Well, I want to talk about war just a little bit, because what I'm picking up is actually intelligence, like intel, like CIA, that kind of intelligence. I feel like we're going to be sharper. We're not going to be putting up with anything. Aries doesn't put up with anything. And I think we're going to be making decisions much faster. We've gone from Biden, who sort of does things behind the scenes, kind of at his own pace, cannot be bothered about whatever you think. We're going into this Aries energy of, let's get it done. Like an astrologer told me one time about Aries, and I thought it was funny because at the time I was dating an Aries, and I thought that's true. Instead of walking down the stairs, they'll fall down the stairs because it's faster. Like whatever's fastest is what they're going to do. So that it is warlike, but Aries can also be compassionate, I think. And Aries can also be very scheming and very strategic. So as much as there is war energy, there's other energies that could manifest as well that could actually help us.
Okay. So this is what I'm going to tell you is I think Aries energy, it's what's called cardinal. It gets things done. I know 2025 is going to be like speeding up so fast. Things are going to start to happen like we can't even understand how quickly our lives are changing, and the institutions, the government, things aren't going to be able to keep up. So I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole, but Uranus is also going to be in Gemini. And when Uranus goes into Gemini, you have tons of, Uranus is change and it's electric and it just comes out of nowhere. There's like something needs to change. Okay. So when Uranus does this, that's going to be in Gemini, which is the mind. And it's like inventions and technology and new communications. Things are going to be speeding up so rapidly that things like the government, who used to be somebody that protected us from, bad actors or things changing, they just are like deer in the headlights. So no matter which administration is coming in 2025, there's like deer in the headlight energy, which is like, we are a little, and this is not to scare people because I'm going to tell you some good stuff too, but we're a little bit on our own. Like we're going to have to deal with this energy. No one's coming to save us kind of energy. And so again, I'm not trying to scare anybody, because in the summer, there's like some really nice energy with the outer planets, harmonizing, but we're going from a much more, like you said, Susan, behind the scenes, kind of like they're just taking care of it. Like we don't have to worry about it, to like everything out in the open, moving fast. And we're going to have to figure out a way to keep up and not let it drive us crazy, because it's a new world is being born. We're in the birth canal right now, and we can't see the end of the story. Does that help?
Yeah, that helps. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, I want you to interrupt me, because I, as an astrologer, I do know that we can get all like, boop, 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 and I don't want to, so you know what? The only thing I'll say about Nero, I don't want to talk too much about Nero because I want to talk about Henry VIII, and I don't want to and I think that there's more of a lesson at the end of this. But what I'm going to say is Nero, let me give you a date. Whenever Nero it was 54 AD. Okay. Pluto had not been discovered yet. Pluto doesn't get discovered until the 1930s, but that doesn't mean Pluto wasn't still in the sky doing stuff. So keep that in mind. Okay. when Nero came into power, he was a Roman emperor, and Nero was very much a 45 figure. He didn't really want to govern. He was incredibly narcissistic. He was a showman, okay? He was somebody that when he first got in, he led a charmed life in the sense that, he was born into this, and that was just how it was. At the time that he was born, the Senate in Rome held all the power. And so the elite really didn't like him because they were like, this guy's a rabble rouser. And he's somebody who was very popular with the masses. He would pretend to be a charioteer. He had this kind of like flamboyant style that people who were, the everyday people that love to go to a good wrestling match or like a gladiator fight, right? Think about 45 going into a WWE event or a UFC event.
He did.
That's exactly my point. It's like that's the energy of this guy. This guy was
my
like,
God, it's like the same.
Right. He was very much like, I'm for you. And I'm going to like eliminate all the taxes. And so the Senate was like, oh my God, if he eliminates all the taxes, like, we're going to go bankrupt. Like, how do they think that anything's like, how are we going to pay for the army? And, how are we going to pay for the empire? Like, this isn't a thing, right? So, but he would just make these bold declarations, and he was very populist. Well, in the beginning, he probably did some good things, but he was working with the Senate that was kind of keeping him under control. As time went on, there were people that thought they could get their own agenda passed. And so there were people that became yes men to him. And so it was very much as we've seen in the first administration here, when you couldn't please the emperor, like you said no, you were arrested, you were killed, he killed his mother, he killed his wife. Like, it's like if you were not saying yes to him and pleasing him, as a malignant narcissist, he pretty much offed you. And so it got to the point where like anybody who had any sort of reins on him or could kind of keep him in check really didn't exist anymore. And so it folded into chaos, as one would imagine. And what ended up happening was he broke the hold of the Senate. And that was kind of his evolutionary purpose, if we look at it that way. He ended up having someone kill him because the army turned against him. And then there were people that, they had short terms as emperor because they really couldn't replace him. And there was kind of a chaotic time. It wasn't the fall of the Roman Empire, but it really was kind of this time where they had to really do a lot of readjustment, and a lot of people got hurt in the process. So, but he remained quite popular even 100 years later in Rome because people were sort of under this culty spell. So that is one example that I thought was kind of pertinent to today. The other one that I think is even more relevant is King Henry VIII. And so King Henry VIII was, and so again, these are all Pluto and Aquarius and Neptune and Aries times. So that's where there's resonance with what's happening now. And this is where the astrology piece comes into it. So when Pluto was in Aquarius, when King Henry VIII was a ruler, this was the time that Martin Luther, just if you can remember your history class, nailed the theses and said, hey, you can't be so corrupt, Catholic Church. Here's what I think should happen. And that was the Protestant Revolution. Well, Protestantism was, taking off, but much more in like an underground kind of way. King Henry VIII has a lot of resonance with 45 as well. Here is this person who, again, is a malignant narcissist, again, who is born into wealth, born into his position. And he's someone who's quite popular. When he was younger, people thought of him as, quite handsome. He was a good athlete. He was married to Catherine of Aragon. He wanted a male heir. That was the thing. of the time. Like if you're a king, you needed a male heir to keep the legacy going. And that's the most important thing if you're a king. And unfortunately, she had stillborn children. She had children that died shortly after childbirth. She had a lot of miscarriages. The bottom line is she had one baby girl, but no male heirs. And so the king really was done with her. He was mad, even though all the reports were they had a pretty decent marriage. She looked the other way at his infidelities, things like that. He was done with her. And so he had his right-hand man was a man named Cardinal Wolsey. And Cardinal Wolsey, basically he said, I don't want to be married to this woman anymore, because he wanted to marry Anne Boleyn, who was one of the queen's attendants. Very smart woman, kind of a society girl, but she was very smart. She didn't just, give it up to him. She said, no, I won't have an affair with you. I want to be the queen. And so Catherine of Aragon, the Pope said, no, you don't get to just toss this woman over because she hasn't had a male heir. That's a no. That's a hard no. And that made Henry very angry. And so he felt like Cardinal Wolsey let him down. So that was the end of Cardinal Wolsey. He's out. He was arrested, and then he died while he was awaiting trial, I believe. So the next thing is he gets married to Anne Boleyn. Anne Boleyn is a big fan of the Protestant Reformation. So she begins to plant seeds and says, hey, this is a way that you can get a divorce from, and I'm not saying it's Anne that gave him all the idea. I do believe that there was Cromwell, I don't want to bore everybody with all the details, but the bottom line is people were whispering in his ear saying, well, you're the king. You should be able to do whatever you want. You're more important than the Pope. Why are you giving the Pope all of this? So what King Henry VIII did was he basically created the Anglican Church, the Church of England, and said, hey, I'm anointed by God. I'm way more important than the Pope. So that is what set off, again, the Protestant Reformation. It kind of broke the stranglehold of the Catholic Church, who at the time had become incredibly corrupt. Pluto and Capricorn preceding, that's when we had indulgences. You had to pay to get into heaven. Only rich people could get into heaven, abusing people like crazy. So Henry then, he takes all of the gold away in England from the Catholic Church by destroying monasteries and killing all the monks and a lot of chaos, right? So I'll skip to the point here. Point being, there were people that were whispering in his ear to get their agenda passed. It worked until it doesn't work, because then once you displease the king, because Anne Boleyn, same thing, didn't have a male heir. She had Elizabeth. And so, okay, off with her head. That was the first off with her head. So then he got married again, and that didn't work out. And then he got married again, and that didn't work out. No one's giving him a male heir. And so off with their head. I think only 2 of his wives were off with their heads. But, there was, I think, 6 wives in total. And the one that did give him a male heir, she died shortly after childbirth. And that male heir did go on to become the king, but then he was very young and he died shortly after. And then we had Catherine of Aragon's daughter become queen. And she was Bloody Mary because she went back to Catholicism hardcore. Then she died. And then we had Queen Elizabeth who came in, and she was Protestant. And so, okay, why am I blabbing about all these historical things? I'm going to get to the point. The point is, Henry was kind of this evil dude who served a purpose, which was to take down the Catholic Church's complete reign of terror. Now, did it usher in all sorts of chaos that lasted for centuries between the Protestants and the Catholics? Absolutely. So there was no super happy ending, but it also brought us Queen Elizabeth, who then really changed the world order through the fact that she, was able to take the money. So the money that Henry stole from the churches, Some of that he put into a Royal Navy. And that Royal Navy then stole the money and all the gold that the Spanish had stolen from the Incans. So, because and this is Pluto and Aquarius too, the Spanish went and destroyed the Incan Empire during this time. And that's when we had all those like conquistadors and stuff. So, my point being is it's a very turbulent time. A lot of things can happen that are meant to take down the existing structure of power that has not been working.
Okay, I get it.
Okay, did that all bore you, or did that make
No, it's fascinating. Actually, it's fascinating. And it also, I want to say, it illustrates how when people say to me, it'll never happen, Susan. I'm like, you just illustrated how this man took down the entire Catholic Church, started a new religion, but not only that, but how the royalty flip-flopped between those two religions several times. That to just imagine the change that had to happen within the royal court, within the land of, oh, whoops, now the royalty is Protestant. Oh, whoops, nope, now it's Catholic. That change is inevitable. Do not come to me and say it can't happen, because I'm telling you, this particular time frame will prove to you can happen. Not only that, but it'll happen 3 times. And then the other thing that I got from you when you were talking is this dissolution, right? The spirit guides kept saying last year, dissolution. I'm like, I don't even know what they're talking about. I did a video where I said that the Republican Party was going to be cut in half. But just recently, within the last couple of months, I'm seeing that the Democratic Party is probably going to be cut in half. And I think this is what you're talking about. Dissolving of power centers. We have Nancy Pelosi, who's become this very kind of solidified and unflexible and not up with the times. And she's still fighting AOC right now. She's still trying to cling to her power, right? And what you're saying is, good luck, lady, because this energy is, if it does nothing else, it's going to break apart all the power centers. But it's not like this stuff happens from some, monster that comes in and says, you must do this. We still get to choose. This is just the energy that we're going to be operating in. It's going to influence us for sure, but we still can make choices and navigate through this energy.
So here's what I want everyone to recognize, and this is all very big picture, is while all these things are happening, people are still getting up in the morning and milking the cows and taking care of their babies and, protecting their parents. And, these things all are happening on a very big scale. And so what I want to get across is the old power structure will crumble. And what comes next, we don't know. So if we go back and we look, the Catholic Church had these magnificent, but also slightly terrifying churches and cathedrals that you could see from the village every angle. Like I remember going in Germany once and seeing one of these massive cathedrals, and it's like everywhere in the village, everywhere in the city, there it is looming over you, okay? So it took this malignant narcissist at the right time to kind of then say, that's not going to happen anymore. So that's when that's the stop of these like giant cathedrals. But then you start to by Pluto and Capricorn, like over the 248, the big power center is the monarchy. And that's where you have Versailles and these over the top, beautiful palaces. That's that era, right? And that's when you get the French Revolution. That's when you get the American Revolution that says the monarchy has gone too far. We're done with you. We're out, okay? So what have we been living under since Pluto in Capricorn? But basically, what's been the big thing? Well, we are a capitalistic society, and this is end stage capitalism, where what is the big things looming over us now? These skyscrapers, it's corporations. It is, the Twin Towers. That was like, that was kind of the warning shot to some degree from far beyond. It's like this is the power structure that has gone too far, that is decayed, that has become, where somebody can make billions and billions of profit and yet want to take, the richest person in the world is trying to take away veterans benefits and saying that it's time for a little austerity and pain. And, so that's where you get to this point where it's like people can only take so much. And I think what's coming is that's that tipping point, and that brings it back to the Luigi character where I
knew
think
you were going to go there. Yes.
yeah, so that's, I think, where we're like, oh, that was the thing that suddenly we stopped. That was the first time since 45 came into power in any way, shape, or form, since the escalator, that we weren't all fighting each other, that we were all on the same side about something.
That's true. That's true. On the right-wing commentators' videos, their comments were like pro Luigi.
Right,
The left
and that was
wing,
shocking to them. Those
that was
people,
shocking to them.
they're like the mouthpieces for these billionaires and the Russians, and
they usually follow, right? They're sheep. All of a sudden, their sheep went a different direction. They were like, wait, what happened? And what's interesting is that happened on both sides. The liberals and the right wing both said, we don't condone this, stop talking about this. But their comments were full of people really going on and, being
and that's
happy.
a good point, Susan, because the mainstream media too was like, isn't this so horrible? And,
we were all like,
exactly. My mother told me, she was the one who told me about it. And she was like, isn't that horrible? And I was like, no, I mean, I'm sorry. Like, I hate to break it to you, but they almost bankrupted me. United Healthcare almost bankrupted me. It's just a good thing that I'm good at saving. And
wow.
And my mom's like, well, they've taken good care of me. I'm like, no, Medicare has taken good care of you. You've Medicare Advantage through United Healthcare. It's very different. The rest of us out here, my son has asthma and I have to pay $1,000 out of pocket for his lung test every 6 months, just to keep my son alive. Like, so everybody's got a story. And that's where I think what we're going to see. And so I am not necessarily predicting the guillotine. I'm really not, because that was Uranus, Pluto opposing Uranus. Anyway, astrobabble, bottom line is I am predicting something different. Actually, I'm not predicting anything. I am just telling you what's happening. What is happening is that something new is coming in. We don't know what it is. People are talking about aliens. People are talking about, new inventions with AI. AI could potentially help save our environment. AI could actually, wipe out most people's jobs and we have a severe depression. I can't tell you exactly what's going to happen, but something's going to happen where ultimately that corporate power structure of the billionaires and the greedy CEOs will look differently in 20 years, but it's a 20-year process.
But it started out with Luigi. So that gives us a little bit of a glimpse, right? Like the 2008 financial crisis was a glimpse of what was to happen after that, right? So this is important, I think. But I would just say you're not powerless. The power structures are maybe being renegotiated or changed in some way. That means that you could, in your neighborhood, in your own power, put forth your power. Because I think we can all agree that we're all in a place where we don't have any more F's to give, right? We're just done. We're literally done. And we're not going to be putting up with that person at the holiday dinner. We're not going to be putting up with this or that. We're just not. So that's how we're going into this energy. So I kind of feel like,
yes,
even though Power of the People is an oversimplification of Aquarius and Pluto, I think that there is something there. There's still a flavor of that.
I just think it's not kumbaya. I think it's 100% power.
It could be pitchforks.
I think, well, and it has been. And so that's the other thing is like if the people that hold on and fight, would Henry have been able to declare himself almighty if people weren't already so fed up with the church? No. They would have overthrown him. The same with Nero. Like the bottom line is, and like all these examples throughout history, is the power to the people is like, we have no F's to give. We have been all collectively pushed to our breaking point when we try to change an airline ticket after they've canceled our flight, and we go through 500 rounds of the system and we still don't talk to anyone. And then we end up talking to someone who in India who is just reading off a script. That is all done to depress us and frustrate us and make it impossible for us to feel like we have any agency or any power. And that's when you break people. And that's what we're seeing is people are broken. I think that's how we ended up even considering 45 as an option, meaning half the country. Obviously, I've never considered that as an option, but I think people are just like, I can't take anymore. I'm ready for whatever new wrecking ball will help me. And that's the thing is there's a wrecking ball coming, but we don't know what's on the other side of it. So personally, don't get scared, don't freak out. Do I think that the first few months of this year are going to be hard and a little chaotic? I do. I don't necessarily see this being, so let's say, if it is Kamala, well, that's not going to go over well.
Not going to go over well at all. It's not. Nope.
So let's say it's 45. Well, that's, we already see the billionaire cabinet. We already see what they want to change Social Security. They want to strip Medicaid. They want to strip Medicare. Like we see they want to strip veterans benefits. Like we see the Project 2025 outline taking place. Well, that's not going to go well either because they specifically said, no, we're not doing Project 2025. Well, you are. So that's going to be, so there's the endings, the complete collapse of certain things that we've all come to rely on. And then that's when Pluto is in Aquarius, we get Neptune in Aries. That's when people start to wake up and say, this isn't what I thought.
Warlike. Oh my God, the people are warlike.
Right. We get mad. We say no more. How long does he last? I don't know. Right? So these are the themes. Because I'm not clairvoyant, all I can tell you is the themes. And what I see is a themes of there is going to be a power structure change. And right now we see these billionaires are the power structure. They're the Citizens United ushered in all the money into politics, which really broke Washington.
That's right. It broke our democracy.
And so in 2008 was also when you had Hamilton. And so you think about Hamilton, the themes in Hamilton were about the founding of this country and democracy, but also Hamilton was the one who kind of created our capitalistic society. So that's kind of interesting. Well, what's one of the big things that we're all talking about now? Wicked, and Elphaba is a very Aquarian character where she's kind of pointing out to everybody that the emperor has no clothes. The wizard is not who he says he is. Right. So I think Luigi is one of those, Aquarian characters. He's not an Aquarius, but that's what I'm talking about is like symbolic. And so is Elphaba, like symbolic of like, oh, we have to care about other people. What's going to happen when you take away someone's livelihood? Like, do you think that, how do you think they're going to live? Like, what do you, Mr. Billionaire, think is going to happen?
Right. And the pressure is going to be on them because right now they can't, right now they're hiring extra security and they're talking about not going in public. I mean, the pressure is already on them. They already feel this. And I would just say too, something I've noticed is that, and I challenge you guys to notice the same thing. So right after the election, I mentioned on a video that all these flags went up that hadn't been up before. And I walk my dog all the time and I know the houses. I know who does Christmas, who does Halloween, whatever. Well, all of these flags for 45 started appearing. And I was like, my God, what is happening? And there's this guy who drives around a golf cart with these big flags. Well, I got from my spirit guides that these people got the message that, oh, snap, my groceries are going to go up. I might lose my Social Security. My veterans benefits might disappear, or it might be privatized. All the flags disappeared. Mr. Golf Cart Man, you can't even find his golf cart, much less the flags. The man is under witness protection. Also, because they know, and I've said this before, that the people should be worried about is the liberals, because we've been tamping it down. We've been like dealing with it. MAGAs have been exposing their anger, getting it out, having their fits. We have not. And I see some liberal walking across the street, knocking on the door and cold cocking somebody who's a MAGA person because they lost their veteran benefits. That is very much Aries energy, Mars energy. It's that kind of, that kind of, and it's Aquarian Pluto energy,
And
because
also
it's
people
tied
are
to
going
the
to be
people.
mad that they were lied to. Because
Yes.
once it suddenly, like, this is the thing, it's like, wow, it's changed, the messaging has changed awful quickly. Suddenly, like, oh, well, we can't control the price of groceries. That's awful
Yes.
hard to do. And
Yeah.
like, and if you get rid of Medicaid, which they're absolutely going to do that. That's happening. Like, from what I've read, unless, people in Congress grow a pair, like, that's happening. And like, when people, these are his base. I mean, these are people that, rely on these benefits. So,
Within 6 months, we would be in a police state. Within 6 months, because everybody would be in the streets. Everybody, Mitch McConnell, I know where Mitch McConnell's house is. I mean, you know where these people's houses are. People already protest at their houses. These people are going to have to start building the compounds like Zuckerberg built. You know what I mean? They cannot withstand the wrath of the people, is what my spirit guides are saying right now, which is also Pluto and Aquarius. That's what she's telling you guys. So I want to have a question for you. So let's say that Kamala Harris gets in through some miracle, and let's say that the same stuff has to happen. Congress they want to use the word moribund, if you understand it. It's frozen, it's constricted, it's compacted. It can't be flexible. It's not flexible to meet the needs of the people. Okay, it's only flexible to
and
meet,
that's Citizens United because
and that's Citizens United, but that's Nancy Pelosi. That's a lot of these
old,
Democrats
right.
who are in there who are just for their power. Well, here we have Kamala Harris, who is really a pretty good, like you said, Aquarius in Pluto kind of person. But she is going to be at the helm of a lot. These changes are not going to stop. It doesn't matter if 45 is in, it doesn't matter. This is the flavor of the energy we are in. And it says, you must do this homework, humans. This is the homework you have to do. These situations are going to happen. These institutions are going to dissolve. They're going to break down. Of course, we would rather have Kamala Harris be at the helm of that, but she's going to be challenged because to some degree, her hands are tied.
Well, but I mean, here's the thing. Biden is president right now, and Luigi still did what he did.
Yes, that's true. See, there you
we
go.
all still had the exact same reaction. And so whether she's president or he's president, the reaction is still the same. You can't break us anymore. I think with her, the policies, but here's the thing, let's say she got in, she doesn't control Congress.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
right. And like, but one thing that's interesting is like, I feel like people have been sleeping until Pluto went into Aquarius, like in Congress, because now all of a sudden they're like introducing bills for term limits. And it's like, where has some of this been the past 4 years? You know what I mean? Like, they're starting to have these much more progressive things that they're introducing. It's not getting passed, but like the fact that they would even introduce term limits in Congress for the Supreme Court or for, judges or things like that, it just never was even on the radar. And I want to say the thing about United Healthcare, because I thought that was so fascinating. What you said was like, they all of a sudden are like freaking out. And Peter Thiel, the other day, he was spouting off about his whatever. Anyway, somebody asked him, well, what do you think about the Luigi situation? Starts stuttering, doesn't even like know what to say. And he's like, well, I think that this is a man who wants to take the vote away from women, by the way. Just to be clear. Like, this man is like an extremist to the extreme. And he is big money if you don't know who he is, but he's one of these dark money folks behind the scenes, and he's very much aligned with Musk and Vance. So he didn't know what to say because he's not prepared.
He was stuttering and stuttering and stuttering.
It's not on his radar. Like, it's because there's nothing he can do or say when the pitchforks come out. I'm not advocating pitchforks. I'm not threatening anybody. I don't want anyone coming after me. That is not what I'm saying. I'm just reading the energy, and the energy is, whether it's Kamala, people cannot take it anymore. We're at a breaking point, and she's not going to be able to get any of these progressive things passed with such a divided Congress, with Citizens United, with Supreme Court. So we're dealing with the exact same energy, which is like, it's broken.
Right.
And he's already been let off the hook by everybody, and everybody's bending the knee in the media, right? Like, everybody's like capitulating and kissing his booty and giving him money for his libraries and stuff. I mean, like, insanity. And so this is where I say also Pluto and Aquarius is where we as humans have to realize no one's coming to save us. Like, that's the other realization, is like, we are the ones who save us. And this is where I advocate compassion on a bigger scale for our neighbors, even if we don't understand their decisions or what echo chamber they're in. The manipulation, the lack of education, the things that have been happening in this country for decades has led to a very toxic situation, and we can only take care of ourselves. And that's what I'm focusing on. It is not easy to forgive my MAGA neighbor. I'm not totally there yet, but I'm holding it in my heart that forgiveness is for me, not for them. And that's what I also advocate during this time, is like, because we don't know what amazing inventions are going to be coming and what's coming down the pike. Pull in for the next few months. Focus on yourself, focus on your families. Don't lose your sanity. Don't pin your hopes on anything or anyone. This is a time of realizing, like, that's also Neptune in Aries, is the realization there is no white knight on a white horse. Like, there are no knight on a white horse, whatever the thing is, like, we are the ones who have to save ourselves. That's Pluto and Aquarius. That's Neptune in Aries. Right now, we're still in Neptune in Pisces, where there's a delusion that someone's going to save us. No one's going to save us. We're going to save ourselves. We're going to be our own saviors. And part of that is connection with other people, communities, pulling in, being the healthiest, strongest version of yourself to be prepared for maybe unsettling times, but also maybe really exciting times, because we don't know what's coming, and it could be really interesting.
Could be a mix of both, right? It could be a mix of both, of exciting and challenging times. And when you say community, see, I think this is so important, because the guides have been saying this for a long time. Go out in your neighborhood, look at the people who have the big gardens, like, if they have a big garden, more often than not, they have more produce. I had a small garden, and I used to give things away like by the bagful. So, you can sort of create barter situations. Hey, you have too many tomatoes. Well, you know what? I know how to change oil in a car. Can I barter with you? Or I rake your leaves, right? I'll have my kids rake your leaves, whatever, right? This neighborly thing, right? And you don't have to do it with MAGAs. That's fine. But find people in your neighborhood that you can get to know and help each other, because that's going to be super important. And if there's no one in your neighborhood, find your online community. Community is going to be
right
key.
there with that. I think we're going to see like really strong increase in online community. It's Pluto and Capricorn has been incredibly isolating. Like, think about COVID, people locked away in their homes, and like some people are only starting now and never fully recovered from that isolation. I think we're going to be under a new paradigm of community. And by community, I mean, like, we're going to have more friends. We're going to have more people that we see are like, oh yeah, I hate United Healthcare too. Like, there's also going to have all these opportunities to join people's memberships and communities in that way. So if you're like, oh, I live in I'm this blue dot surrounded by red, like, that's okay. Like, your people are out there. We're online, and you don't isolate. This is a time, it's much more social. It's much more extroverted energy. It's much more like planning and connectivity and like it's revolutionary energy. So we have to think about, had we not had the Civil War, would we still have slavery? You know, that was also Neptune in Aries. So we have to like think about these things that like there's a bigger picture going on. There's some greater good that takes place that changes the world, that advances society. You know, so Pluto and Aquarius, the Spanish invaded the Incans, the Mayans, you know, or sorry, I'm being very, I can't remember which, but anyway, sorry everyone out there. They went to South America and they, you know, took over and stole all their gold. That's pretty messed up, right? But like that also, when I was down in Peru, I learned some history about the fact that there was tons of infighting and corruption in their society. And that's how it happened because one of them, like one of the kings turned on the other king and like it, you know, and that's how then turned him over.
Divided you fall, divided you fall.
Divided you fall. And so keep that in mind that sometimes when it's just beyond repair, you need to tear it down and start over. And we're at sort of a start over phase, but starting over sometimes can be exciting. There can be something good that comes of it. Maybe we all get universal health care, but does that happen tomorrow? Probably not.
Probably not tomorrow, but I do see that. Because look, we're on both sides so upset about the healthcare situation. They're going to throw us a bone because they realize there's more of us than there are of them. And they're going to throw us a few legislative bones to keep all of us kind of quiet. I also see that guaranteed payment thing where they mail you a check I've been seeing that for a long time. That was very popular when that went.
Oh, universal basic income.
That was very popular.
Scary. Yeah. Well, it's interesting, but scary. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with that. And that may come into play. That's a very Pluto and Aquarian thing too. Universal basic
income. That's the AI thing. That's when people start losing their jobs. Where they kind of
realize like, oh, we're just taking everyone's jobs away. So now everyone's going to make a living. So, you know, there's a lot to process about what could happen. So again, I think right now, I would say focus on what's in front of you, focus on your own life. The other thing that I thought was really interesting, this really goes to show the level of decay, is they're talking about setting up a hotline for the CEOs that are getting threats, so they can call in and
those poor babies. Oh my God.
Support channels that talk about
it's not just a hotline, it's like an FBI hotline or something, right? Like it's like it's not like
it's like, oh, we need to get into gear and like make sure this doesn't happen.
We're gonna help you. We're gonna be there for you. Oh my God.
You know, the woman who's a victim of sexual assault or domestic violence. There's no, you know,
there's no hotline for her.
Yeah. Like, so we just have to pay attention. Take care of our families, take care of ourselves, take care of your health. Don't spin out. That's what I always say. So if you like my message about don't spin out, that's a big thing that I try to help bring consciousness and peace into people's lives over on my channel. And just the astrology says there's something bigger going on. We don't know. It could become this beautiful butterfly. I just don't know. We're definitely in the birth canal though.
Well, butterflies, how do they become butterflies? There's a reason you said butterfly, I'm sure of it, because you have a nice little caterpillar who thinks they're all that. You know what I mean? They get melted down in a cocoon and then they become a butterfly. That is not an easy process. So I know there's a reason why you said that. I think it's a silver lining. Look through all of history. There's always ups and downs, always ups and downs. No, just down, right? There's always a corresponding up. So, and it's just change, guys. It's change, and take care of yourself, like Dabney's saying. And check out her channel because she does the most cool astrology videos that are not so heavy on the tech. On the astrology jargon, they're a little bit more astrology oriented, but you can follow what's going on. She's such a great communicator, such a great teacher. And if you need a reading, she does astrology readings. This same information can help you. You can understand how perhaps this next year you might want to pay attention to this, or it's a great opportunity for that. It's great for planning. And this is what we're talking about. Bet on you, invest in you, make your 2025 better than ever could be.
Yeah, I'm going to plug one thing. So it's not up yet to sign up, but you can email me through my website, Lawless Astrology, if you want to get, and I'll send you the information when it's up. But I'm going to have a class in 2025 in January that looks at where Pluto in Capricorn was in your chart and where Pluto in Aquarius will be. So where in your personal life have you undergone a transformation, and what can you expect in 2025? And also where your North and South node are. So what are you here to do in this lifetime? So if a reading is too expensive for you, this class I'm hoping will give you the basis. So it gives you something to kind of look at, like, what am I here to do?
And it's knowledge. You're getting knowledge. So now you can look at your chart and have more understanding. Now, to take that class, you guys, you're going to need your birth time. You have to have your exact time of birth, and you need to know where you were born. Then you can get a free chart online. Just look up free astrology chart. You will need that information to take her class, because she's going to help you understand where that information is on your chart.
I'm going to do everybody one better, because I just did a beta of this class, and I know that most of the people that watch this channel and even my channel are not astrology people. So I'm actually going to give you your chart. So we're going to pull a chart for everybody that takes the class.
Nice. You don't even have to do it. I love that. But you still need your birth time.
You need your birth time. You need the exact time of birth, and within a couple minutes. So if you don't have that, not astrology might not be the thing for you right now. That's okay too. But you can always get it on your birth certificate. But it's a lot of work. I get it.
Well, some people, honestly, it just wasn't recorded. You know what I mean? Like, if you're of a certain age, it wasn't as precise as it was, at other times. Or maybe you were born at home or something like that. There is a way to rectify your chart, is what they call it, where it's not an inexpensive thing, and it is a cumbersome thing. Yeah. And she doesn't do it. But you could, if somebody's just asking, you could find an astrologer to put the pieces together based on your life events. They could kind of more or less pinpoint your time.
Yeah, Celeste Brooks does that.
Celeste Brooks does that. Fantastic. She's amazing. Yeah, she's been on my channel too, and she's amazing. Yeah. Wow, Dabney, thank you so much for joining me. Really appreciate it. I hope everybody checks out her YouTube channel and her website. I'll have all the information down in the show notes. I hope this was helpful. I hope you guys, if nothing else, you got a respite from the crazy news that's happening, and you got an interesting look at astrology in history of astrology. And I love the way Dabney brings it to life. Like, I would also say, I watched her original video where she dove into all the astrology. It's worth it. I was sharing it with my friends. I shared it on my membership because I was like, everybody needs to watch this. So it's a little bit more about the history. It's absolutely worth watching. I'm actually going to put a link to that video in the show notes as well, because it's riveting. Like, you won't even know time has stopped. You will just be so into it. Okay.
Oh. Thank you. Really, and also, seriously, I'm more articulate about the history in that one. Although I do give the caveat, I'm not a historian. And so if I got some facts wrong, I made a joke that it's like, I'm like a sober version of Drunk History, if you've ever seen that show on Comedy Central. And if not, check it out. It's really good.
Yeah, it's fun, especially now. We need some comedy in our lives. Well, thank you so much, Dabney, for coming on.
Everybody really loves you. Everybody loves her for a reason. She's amazing.
Thank you. You as well, dear. You as well. All right, everybody. Y'all take care. We'll see you again soon.
Bye.
For entertainment purposes only,